Hello, my name's Maddie from Maddie Harvey Designs. I'm a knitwear designer and knitting teacher who loves to help knitters develop their creativity and confidence through my knitting patterns, knitting kits and online workshops. This is a tutorial for my Bamburgh Cowl. I'm going to show you how to finish off the cowl, how to seam the two edges together, because it's knitted in the round in a loop, and at the end you join together the two sides with this seam here. Now it's not completely invisible, but I think it does kind of mimic the garter stitch stripe that we've got here. So this is my prototype, and I have a little sample here that I'm going to show you. Now I have blocked this before I'm seaming it, so I would advise you do that just because I think it gives you a better finish. It's easier to block it this widthways, so you can put some blocking wires inside and stretch it out widthways as well as lengthways before you seam it. I have also woven in all my ends except for this end, which I'm going to use to join it together. Now you can see this is all the yarn that I have left, so I think I've just got enough to finish off. I've got about 3 or 4 times the circumference of this to finish it off with. If you find yourself running out of yarn, you could take it back one full repeat and the cowl will still be perfectly wearable. You just don't want to run out of your contrast colour when you're doing the join. Okay, now when you're joining a loop like this, it's really important to remember to join this outside with this outside edge here, okay, and the two inside edges will get joined together. All right, if I join this outside with this inside edge, I will end up with a kind of twisted loop. So just think carefully before you start joining that you want to join basically your two outsides, and then as we get along here and we've joined it here, we'll turn it round and join the other side. Okay, now to keep track of the join, I've put a stitch marker here. This is the cast on edge here. Each repeat of this patterning is 8 stitches wide, so I've put this marker 8 stitches along, so you can see it's in between this kind of half hexagon shape here. Okay, and I have also put a marker on my live stitches here, 8 stitches along, so I can keep track. I can make sure that I'm matching up the patterning from here with what's on the cast on edge, and that means that when you join it together you will end up with this continuation of the pattern. You'll get your hexagons here and here, and it will look as seamless as it can do. Okay, so what we're going to do is a little bit like a 3-needle cast off. We're going to pick up stitches along this cast on edge and knit them together with the live stitches here, and then when we've got 2 of those stitches we're going to cast them off. Now I'm going to use the end of my my circular needle here to cast off, but you could use a spare needle if you wanted to, especially if you are prone to casting off quite tightly. You want to keep this fairly loose. Okay, so I'm going to pick up a stitch here, and usually I would recommend picking up stitches going through 2 loops when you pick up, but I'm just going to pick up 1 here just because it's a little bit more straightforward, and I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together. Okay, and then I'm coming back to here and I'm going to pick up the next stitch, which is there, and I'm going to knit those 2 together. And now that I've got 2 here, I'll lift the bottom one over the top one to cast it off. Okay, then I'm going to go back here to my cast on edge, and I'm going to put my needle through the next loop along, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over, and then this is this is the number 4 stitch, this one. So I want to make sure that I am going to stick my needle through the middle, getting towards the middle of the repeat on the cast off edge that I've marked. So it's kind of at the bottom, halfway between a repeat is at the bottom of the start of that hexagon, if you can see what I mean. Yeah, so here and here. So I know that I want to pick up 4 stitches between there and the marker and the middle there. So I'm going to pick my next stitch up under here and knit those 2 together. And pass the bottom one over the top one to cast off. Okay, now the next one, I've got 4 left here to cast off, and I've got 4 to go along here. So I'm going to pick up my next one here, which is the bottom of the slip stitch, and knit those 2 together. And lift the bottom one over the top one and off. Okay, and then I've got to get 3 in here. So I think if I go into this strand here next and knit those 2 together and lift that one over, and then I'm going to go here next. Now, as with all these things, it is a bit awkward once you start. Just at the very beginning, but you'll find that it does get a bit easier and you're more able to see what you're doing. Right, and that's my last one. That's taking me up to the marker here, and it's the last stitch before the marker on my live stitches. So I'm just going to stop and have a little look, and I think that looks pretty neat there. If you think it doesn't look right, just take it out and do it again. You just take your time, basically. Okay, and now I'm going to move my markers along 8 stitches so that I can cast off the next repeat. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and you'll see that's in the middle of that bottom hexagon there. And I'm also going to move my marker along my cast on edge over to here, which is the middle of this top hexagon here. And then I will just do the same thing again. So picking up a stitch at a time from the cast off edge, and the cast on edge, and knitting it together with one of the stitches that's live and on my needles here, and then casting them off and until I get to the edge here, and then I turn it round. And obviously if you're using double pointed needles, you might be turning and working off the different needles at separate times until I get back round to where I started. Now, if you're finding that tricky, what you could do is if you got a smaller size needle, so this is a 3.25, you could say use a 2.75 or something like that, and you could actually pick up the stitches in here, just thread your needle through and pick them all up, and then do a proper sort of 3 needle cast off. Or if you're really struggling with this, I would suggest just cast off normally here and then sew the 2 sides together, and just making sure that you leave enough yarn. As I said, you can make it 1 repeat shorter without it affecting the fit too much. I hope you found that useful. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. I release new video tutorials every Thursday, and you can buy the Bamburgh Cowl pattern and other patterns via my website, maddieharveydesigns.com.